Justin Bieber nearly had to take a paternity test. What a waste of a test that would have been. No, he's not the father. The only way that he could have impregnated a girl was if he'd borrowed one of Martha Stewart's old turkey basters. Open wide.
Ricky Gervais is unlike any other comedian when it comes to roasting celebrities to their faces. Most comedians play it safe, especially when the people they are joking about are sitting right there in the same room. But Ricky has never been that kind of comedian. He has spent decades building a reputation for saying exactly what is on his mind, no matter who is in the audience and no matter how uncomfortable it makes people feel. From award show stages to television interviews, he has consistently shown that no celebrity is too big, too powerful, or too famous to escape his sharp tongue. Whether it's a playful jab or a full-blown takedown of someone who is being disrespectful, Ricky always finds a way to land the perfect comeback at the perfect moment. That is exactly what we are going to look at today. Some of the greatest clapbacks and savage moments from the British legend himself. Before we dive in, if you enjoy content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We cover the best celebrity moments, interviews, and the kind of clips you simply cannot find anywhere else. Join the community and never miss a thing. Now, one of the most talked about moments in recent award show history was when Will Smith walked up on stage and slapped Chris Rock during the Oscars. It was a shocking moment that the entire world had an opinion about, and naturally, people were curious what Ricky Gervais thought. But more importantly, people started wondering what would have happened if Ricky had been the one hosting that night instead of someone else. When asked about it, Ricky gave a brilliantly sharp answer. He said he would not have made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's hair condition in the first place. Instead, he would have made a joke about her boyfriend. It was the kind of response that only Ricky could give, turning a sensitive and widely discussed topic into a perfectly crafted one-liner that immediately went viral and ended up trending across social media and making headlines in newspapers for days afterward. Ricky himself acknowledged that slapping someone at an event like the Oscars is completely insane. There is no other word for it. You were at one of the most prestigious events in the entertainment world, surrounded by cameras and millions of viewers watching at home, and someone decides that physically assaulting the host is an acceptable response to a joke. Ricky found the whole thing absolutely bizarre, and his comment about Jada's boyfriend rather than her hair showed exactly why he is so good at what he does. He spotted the angle that everyone else was too nervous to mention and went straight for it. If there's one celebrity that Ricky Gervais has targeted more than anyone else over the years, it has to be Mel Gibson. The jokes about Mel have been a recurring theme across multiple award show appearances, and every single time, Ricky finds a new way to make the audience both cringe and laugh at the same time. The first time he really went for it was after Mel Gibson had been arrested for driving under the influence and had also been caught making a series of deeply offensive anti-Semitic comments. With all of that fresh in the public's memory, Ricky walked out on stage and casually mentioned that he likes a drink as much as the next person, unless that next person happens to be Mel Gibson. The crowd went absolutely wild. It was simple, it was direct, and it hit exactly where it was supposed to. But Ricky did not stop there. Over the following years in award shows, he kept returning to the subject of Mel Gibson as if it were a running joke that he simply could not let go of. And honestly, the material kept getting better. At one point, he introduced the actor by first saying he was not going to have a go at him, because Mel had been through a lot. Then he paused and added that it was not as much as the Jews had been through, to be fair. The audience reaction was a mix of laughter and disbelief, which is usually the exact response Ricky is going for. Later, introducing Mel Gibson again on another occasion, Ricky acknowledged the awkward situation by pointing out that a few years earlier, he had made jokes about Mel getting drunk and saying some unsavory things, and now he found himself in the uncomfortable position of having to introduce the man again. He jokingly blamed NBC for putting him in this terrible situation. Then, before bringing Mel out, he wanted to say something nice about him first. After a brief pause, he said the nicest thing he could think of was that he would rather have a drink with Mel Gibson in his hotel room than with Bill Cosby. It was a brutal comparison that referenced Bill Cosby's widely reported crimes, and it managed to take aim at two controversial figures in a single sentence. Leonardo DiCaprio is another celebrity who has ended up in Ricky's crosshairs, and the subject is always the same. While DiCaprio is genuinely one of the most talented actors of his generation, with an Oscar win and decades of critically acclaimed performances behind him, he is perhaps equally well known for a very different reason, which is his pattern of only ever dating very young women. Ricky touched on this during a Golden Globes monologue when talking about the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, pointing out that the movie was nearly 3 hours long, and noting that by the time it ended, Leonardo DiCaprio's date had become too old for him. Then he added that even Prince Andrew, who has his own very well-known controversies involving young women, would be telling Leo to slow down. At this point. It was a moment that packed in multiple celebrity takedowns within just a few sentences. Then there was his encounter with Joy Behar, the outspoken and often provocative television host who has had memorable run-ins with plenty of celebrities over the years. Joy brought up the fact that Ricky is often considered politically incorrect, particularly at events like the Golden Globes. Ricky pushed back on this quite directly, arguing that just because someone is offended by something does not automatically make them right. He pointed out that offense is a feeling, and feelings are personal and subjective. Some people are even offended by the concept of equality, he said, so you simply cannot spend your life trying to second-guess everyone. If you try to please everyone, you will end up pleasing no one. What made this exchange even more interesting was what happened just before Joy labeled him as sexist. Despite calling him out for being offensive, she had actually physically groped him moments earlier. Ricky found this contradiction quite amusing and was clearly not going to let it slide without pointing it out. He also addressed one specific joke that people had found mean, which was a comment he had made about the Sex and the City 2 poster, suggesting that the Golden Globe should go to whoever had done the airbrushing on it. Joy called it a little sexist. Ricky disagreed completely and pointed out the obvious double standard in the whole interaction. When 2017 arrived and journalist Ronan Farrow's reporting began to expose the widespread abuse and harassment that had been happening behind the scenes in Hollywood for decades, it put figures like Harvey Weinstein in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Ricky Gervais had already spent years poking fun at the hypocrisy of the entertainment industry, and this new wave of scandals gave him even more material to work with. At the Golden Globes, he pointed out that the room was full of powerful executives from every kind of background, but what they all had in common was that they were absolutely terrified of Ronan Farrow, who was coming for all of them. He then introduced a presenter who had starred in the Netflix film Bird Box, a movie about people who survive a mysterious threat by not looking at it and keeping their eyes closed. Ricky noted that this was sort of like working for Harvey Weinstein. The joke landed like a bomb in the room. The presenter looked visibly shocked and told Ricky to stop, which only made the moment funnier. Ricky played it perfectly innocent, as if he had no idea why anyone would be uncomfortable with the comparison. Not every appearance Ricky makes involves him standing behind a podium delivering rehearsed jokes. Sometimes the sharpest moments come in more casual interview settings, where his quick thinking is on full display. One such moment came during an appearance on a show hosted by Piers Morgan, where the two got into a discussion about gun laws in America. The specific topic was the fact that the state of Iowa had been issuing gun permits to people who were completely blind, not just partially sighted, but fully unable to see. The argument being made in favor of this was that if a person had been fully sighted and had legally owned a gun before losing their sight, taking that right away from them would be damaging their constitutional rights. Piers was presenting this as a difficult and nuanced debate, but Ricky cut through all the back and forth with a single, simple statement. He said the short answer was that blind people should not have guns because they cannot see what they are shooting. It was so obvious and so direct that it almost felt like the entire debate had been unnecessary to begin with. Then Ricky took things a step further by bringing up Kinder eggs, those small chocolate eggs with little toys inside that are banned in the United States because they are considered a choking hazard. He pointed out the absurdity of a country that bans a children's chocolate treat for safety reasons but has no problem selling AR-15 assault rifles. He even framed it as a message to America, saying, "Please let Piers buy a Kinder Egg, but do not let him buy a gun." The audience loved it, and even Piers had to admit it was a strong argument, even if he was not happy about being on the receiving end of it. By the time Ricky Gervais hosted the Golden Globe Awards for the 5th time, something had clearly shifted in his approach. The tone was sharper and more confrontational than ever before. It felt less like a comedy monologue and more like a genuine dressing down of the entire room. He looked out at the audience full of the biggest names in film and television and told them plainly that if they won an award that night, they should not use it as an opportunity to make a political speech or lecture the public about anything. His reasoning was blunt and direct. He said that most of the people in that room knew nothing about the real world and had spent less time in school than teenage climate activist Greta Thunberg. His instruction was simple: come up, accept your award, thank your agent and your God, and then leave. No speeches, no lectures, no pretending to be experts on topics you know nothing about. It was one of the most talked about moments of his entire hosting career, and perfectly summed up why he is such a unique presence on a stage like that. One final moment that perfectly captures Ricky's ability to correct people with a single well-timed sentence came during an interview where a host introduced him by referring to his show as the UK version of The Office. Now, anyone who knows anything about the history of that show knows that the original version, created by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, aired in the United Kingdom first, and it was only adapted into an American version later. The American version, starring Steve Carell, has gone on to become enormously popular and arguably reached a much wider audience, but the original British series came first and was the creative foundation for everything that followed. So when this host casually referred to his version as the UK version, Ricky didn't get angry or go into a lengthy explanation. He simply smiled and corrected her by saying that he calls it the original. It was a masterclass in how to put someone in their place without raising your voice or being rude about it. Just a quiet, confident correction that made the point far more effectively than any long-winded argument. And that really is what makes Ricky Gervais so special as a comedian and as a public figure. He doesn't need to shout or get flustered. He just waits for the right moment, says exactly the right thing, and lets the words do all the work. From Mel Gibson to Harvey Weinstein, from Leonardo DiCaprio to Piers Morgan and Joy Behar, nobody walks away from an encounter with Ricky Gervais without at least one memorable moment to show for it. He is genuinely one of a kind.